masking for those wing tips and the tip there, that actually comes down the silver there, and then it goes up ever so slightly on, you can see that piece of tape there goes up into that little bump up. Same thing on this side, and that silver comes down below this line as it does there. So hopefully I've masked that correctly. These are lights on the tips here. So I masked the light there and left the silver or the chrome underneath there. That way I come back with, you know, that transparent blue and like a transparent red. So on each side there, over the silver should look like a light, hopefully. That, you know, yellow is just such a tough color. So I'm gonna shoot that with the Mr. Surfacer 1200 gray, and then let that dry, and then come back with the Blue Angels yellow. There's the gray on the tips. All right, just hit those tips. Done unmasking this, and for the most part it came out okay, but kind of up in here, my worst fears, it pulled up a little bit of the silver. I don't think I put enough of the Alclad clear coat on there. And then on that side of that tail leading edge, okay, rather than the Alclad, I went with the Molito, a few drops in there, and did that, and yeah, whew, I think it worked. I just went from the top because the bottom was good, and I did those two backs. Oh, and I pulled the tape. I forgot to unmask those leading edges on the intakes. Those came out good. So I touched the transparent red and transparent blue to make those lights. I unmasked the canopy, and I'm gonna have to buff that a little more, but I'm hoping a clear coat over everything, especially that cockpit, is gonna help. All right, let's see how this came out. It looks pretty doggone good. All right, decals. All right, I've got this down. I don't know if you can see it cracked here, but I kind of half expected that. So I've hit it with the Salva set, and I'm hoping that melts the whole thing down. Because I painted these edges, I have leftover decal. If I have to fill in around there, you know, ever so slightly, I have all this leftover decal. Meeting at the same point in the you know, kind of in the middle of that intake there. So I'm gonna let that one dry, and I'm gonna start on the back here.
We're flying blue angels way up high, jet smoke streaming as we zoom across the sky. Flying blue angels, blue angels, blue angels, blue angels. We're flying blue angels, daredevils of the sky.
I think that navy on the actual reference is thinner than the navy on and the decals, but as far as spacing and alignment, I think I have everything right. So, all right, flip it over and do the bottom.
Mach 1 is the speed of sound. The angels broke right through. The day that Mach 2 comes around, we'll smash through that one too. Double flip at 12 o'clock, formation wing to wing. Spread eagle back at 6 o'clock, our engines thundering. For just flying just as one, that's our claim to fame. To us, danger is just fun, yes, that's our middle name. Wave to us, you cheering crowds, we'll dip our wings to you. As we roll above the clouds, we're proud we're serving you. We're flying blue angels, way up high, jet smoke streaming as we zoom across the sky.
All right, I think it's a matter of letting it all dry now. So it's a good 3 hours later, and parts of this still don't want to go all the way down. If you can see that, yeah, right there, see that wrinkle? Yeah, same thing there. It's kind of crinkly. And see, it cracked. Can you see that crack there? I'll hit this with some more Salvacet and let it completely dry. You know, I have this extra decal. And, you know, it has some nice straight edges there. So I don't know if you can see it there, but I did lay a spare piece over that crack. And a super tiny piece over the crack here. And I think that's working. I hit a lot of spots with the Salvacet again to get things to lay down. And then on the nose, so it has this blue stripe. Rather than try to paint that, I just took blue stripe decal and you know, cut a piece and then just laid a decal there. I think the US Navy, the V and the Y on this side have a wrinkle that just won't go away. I don't know why. And then the last thing I'll have to do is put this, but I want to leave that off until after I gloss coat again, because I actually like how this came out. Dry brushed effect to it, but it's not. It's actually that a really light mist of the alclad. The next morning, and yeah, I mean, it looks like it's puffed up, but it's not. It's actually down on there. I think that's going to have to do. Again, there's a little wrinkle there on that Y. I've pushed it down. There's not a whole lot I can do about it. I mean, these decals are a little old, but I don't know. They shouldn't really be that bad. I'm going to hit it with one last coat of Future now. And then once that dries, put that exhaust on, and I should be done. And one last thing to do, and I believe both Joe and I did it, is knocked this, I assume that's a pitot tube off there. So that has about that much off the front of that to add on. And it has to be a slightly smaller diameter. So I got to hunt for that. Okay, now. That didn't take long. And I remember this piece is from the UH-2C helicopter. Okay, just touch that with the Molotow and also touch that with the Molotow as well. And I believe those are the final two touches. So I'm going to do something a little different this time and show it on the shelf first. Basically to highlight the changes in paint scheme. And as you can see, the Blue Angels went with, you know, the US Navy all the way up until then. And then they had also incorporated the script Blue Angels. But my understanding is because of the space age and design going towards that, they opted for the italicized Blue Angels and added these stripes. At that time, they also went with just navy on the side. And so this was the first paint scheme or configuration of the F11 Tiger. I flew this way for just one season, 1957, and then the next year, they changed it and eliminated this lower stripe here and changed back to the script words on the side. And then later that year added the shield back to the front. And then when they went to the long nose version, they flipped that around, put the Blue Angels on the nose, the shield on the side, and then went back to US Navy. And then by the time they got to the Phantoms, they had flipped these back around, shield on the front, script, US Navy, and that's the way it stayed all the way until the current day, including the one they fly currently, which, you know, these are the decals for. I told you somewhere down the line I'll be building that one. Now, from the bottom, it was the first to incorporate the arrow, and that has continued ever since. So really, it's two lasting contributions to the paint scheme, so to speak, are the arrow on the bottom and the stripes down the side. So yeah, for 1957, it was just a weird year that they kind of experimented with different design and decided to go back to tradition, and then have kept it that way ever since. The age of supersonic flight came to the Blue Angels at the end of 1957. Commander Ed Holly guided the team's transition into the new swept-wing fighter. The fuselage was designed around the area rule principle, resulting in a clean and, when viewed from above, Coke bottle-shaped fuselage. The high aspect ratio wing, coupled with an afterburning Westinghouse J65 W18 engine, developing 7,450 pounds of thrust, was capable of speeds in excess of Mach 1. Before committing to the Tiger, the team evaluated the North American FJ Fury and the McDonnell Douglas A4 Skyhawk. New skipper Ed Holly described the transition. The team was flying the F9F8s when I got there. Team member Zeke Cormer had apparently gone to Grumman and flown the F11. That's about the time I saw the Thunderbirds with the F100s and the noise they put out. When I got back to Pensacola, I went down to talk to the Chief of Staff about considering an afterburner-equipped airplane. Staff agreed and sent me to Grumman to evaluate the F11 Tiger. Our objective was to find out if the F11 would work as a team airplane. We tried the F11 on the wing and in the slot and didn't have any problems. When we returned, we told staff the F11 could meet the team's needs. Staff went straight to the Chief of Naval Operations, and we got them. The plane came with the J65. It wasn't my choice, but the team didn't lose any planes on cross-country flights due to the engine. We had some problems with them throwing oil over the starboard side, but my main objection was that they were short-legged. It definitely was a stronger airplane than the Cougar, but the burner was the main reason for going with it. That afterburner noise was a crowd pleaser, and the F11F was a much sleeker and sexier plane as well. The team flew its first air show in the F11 at Barron Airfield near Pensacola on March 23, 1957. The Tiger's power, as compared to the Cougars, allowed the team to elongate the vertical maneuvers. We were trying to fly shows on the weekend in the Cougars and train during the week in the F11, Holly explained. We finally had to give up on that and stick with just one bird, because the pulls and speeds were completely different. Once we moved to the F11, we just stuck with it. We didn't have any problems. We just had to get used to it. It was a different bird. Holly had a fighter pilot's philosophy when it came to the look of the Blue Angels air show and the Tiger. He believed the vertical maneuvers looked best, while the closer to the crowd, the better. The F11's afterburner allowed them to do just that. It gave them the power to keep the show within the confines of the airfield. One of the ways we did this was that after a roll, we just snapped it into burner and pulled vertical. At 6,500 feet, you are on your back again looking at the runway, preparing for your next maneuver. Flying a high, tight, close-in show was a matter of practice. The more familiar the team became with their maneuvers, the closer to perfection it could be flown. In the 1958 season, the first 6-plane Delta maneuvers were added to the demonstration, and the 2 solo pilots developed the back-to-back pass. Both planes passed down the show line in formation, one pilot flying straight and level, the other flying inverted. They held this maneuver until the Andrews Air Force Base show, which General Curtis LeMay was attending. The public information officer standing next to him reported that LeMay threw down his cigar and exclaimed, "I can't believe this!" Lieutenant Commander Ken Wallace, team leader in 1962, introduced a number of new maneuvers. One of the first was the Farvel. The maneuver includes the diamond formation, only with the lead plane inverted. The dirty roll takeoff was a maneuver Wallace also introduced and had done in years past flying the A4 Skyhawk. When we were first getting the A4s in the fleet, he explained, I used to demonstrate the plane to squadrons that were supposed to use them. Those confidence maneuvers, such as the dirty roll on takeoff, were some of the things I did to show off the plane's capabilities. We decided to do that with the F11. When replaced after the 1968 season, the F11F Tiger marked the end of an era as the last Grumman-built so-called cat plane flown by the team. So there's the F11F-1 Tiger, short-nose version, to add to my History of the Blue Angels collection. And indeed, those were the last of over 20 years of cat planes flown since the Blues' inception. And that was the connection for this buddy build with Joe at Mad Genius Productions, as he's building the long-nose version in Navy service markings as part of his History of the Grumman cat planes. And in that, we have a mutual appreciation of those aircraft. So I want to take a minute to thank Joe for sharing this, my first buddy build. It was really fun kind of comparing notes along the way and encountering and complaining about the same foibles with this kit and how we dealt with them and planned to deal with them. Some of which we did in the same way and others in different ways. And from what he showed me along the way, his is going to be awesome and blow mine away. His paint scheme is more complicated than mine. But as David Letterman used to say, it's an exhibition, not a competition. But I'm really looking forward to seeing his Tiger. So that'll do it for this build, and I hope you found that interesting. I certainly enjoyed it. Thanks again to Joe. And as I mentioned, somewhere down the line, I'll be adding the Super Hornet to the shelf. So until then, thanks for watching and happy modeling.